Good evening and good to have you with us on this very special broadcast on the Urban Debate. It's a discussion that almost never makes it to the prime time on national news, but needs very, very close attention. It's a discussion that we here at Mirror now take very, very seriously. On World Mental Health Day, let's break the stigma, let's break the taboo, end it around mental health. That's largely been our intent and our initiative here. Let's start talking about the various issues that people, you and I, our colleagues, our friends, our family members may be facing. And the biggest challenge there is that we tend to not talk about it. The biggest challenge is that we tend to hide it. We think there is something wrong if we open up and talk about our mental health. It's pretty much the same as any other physical problem that we may have. But somehow, we are unable to differentiate. And that genuinely simply aggravates the problem. In our country, about 5 crore people suffer from mental health issues. But that's just the official data. If you look at what the reality is, it's going to be far, far bigger. 300 million people affected globally, 5 crore of those in our country itself. Now, here is the other concerning aspect. India has 3 psychiatrists per million people. Not that our general doctor-to-patient ratio is any great, but it's even more alarming when it comes to mental health. India is short of about 66,000 psychiatrists, and we're faced by 20% of the world's children and adults problems just in our country. But these, like I said, are official reported numbers. Because in our country, we choose not to talk about it. We shrug it off like a phase. We say it's just a mood, it's bad mood. Maybe if you focus on your fitness, everything else will get fixed. And if we talk about it, people may think there is something genuinely wrong with us. So let's break that stigma. Tonight is just about having conversation. Our phone lines are open, and I would like you to call up if you want to share your experience or somebody that you know who's gone through tough times, then please do call up. If you have a message for the rest of our countrymen, our phone lines are open. Let's say good evening to those who are with me right now. Aditi Govitrikar, psychologist, Lighthouse Counseling, also an actor. Dr. Santosh Chaturvedi, Senior Professor of Psychiatry and Head for Department of Mental Health Education at NIMHANS. Dr. Harish Shetty, Senior Psychiatrist with me in the studios. Ranveer Alabadia, famously known as Beer Biceps founder and very, very popular online, often speaks about mental health issues. Also, Ananya Birla with me in the studio, singer, songwriter, and a mental health advocate. Thanks you all for joining us. Agastya Kapoor, mental health professional of the Wounded Healer, also with us this evening. So let's begin this conversation, and I want to start from this side. Let's start with you, Ananya. You know, we've been talking a lot about mental health in this country, right, at least in the big cities, at least, you know, in the urban class, the educated class. We still find that a majority of people are not comfortable opening up about it. Why do you think that's happening?
I think the stigma is still very, very large. I think there are various reasons. One thing that I've noticed is people directly think that if you have a mental illness, you are not capable enough, which means that you're not going to get a job, or you may not get married, you may not find the right partner, you may not be able to fulfill your dreams, and that scares people. You may get socially ostracized. So that scares people massively, and then that scares people around you, because of course they don't want you to be in a position where you are stereotyped in any way.
Right.
So there are many different reasons, but we need to realize that there's absolutely nothing wrong in having a mental illness. It's just like having a physical illness. And I think dialogues like this, for example, sitting here, all of us, on prime time and actually talking about it, you know, things like this will actually help. It's about talking, it's about realizing that there's absolutely nothing wrong with it.
But does it happen that, you know, if somebody even wants to talk about it or shows the fact that, you know, they're dealing with something very, very difficult, that people around them don't get it, that they're insensitive or even mock?
You know, I strongly believe that that's changing. I feel like, take the example of something like EVS, a subject that people our age were taught in school, which wasn't taught before us. So you'll see an entire generation that's a lot more environmentally conscious. So the same thing's happening with mental health. Yeah. Like everyone our age is watching a lot of content on social media, a lot of YouTube videos about it. So the stigma is slowly kind of fading away a little bit. It's becoming a more accepted topic. And even something like this whole toxic masculinity debate that goes on, I feel a lot of guys are coming out, venting about their problems, crying openly, talking about crying openly. So it's gradually changing. And happy World Mental Health Day, because I genuinely believe that when we're talking about mental health, you should throw in some positivity there.
Oh yes, absolutely. And that's a great point to make, really. Aditi, let me come across to you on this aspect as well. This struggle to break this stigma, and we have a long way to go in our country. What's the biggest challenge that you in your experience have faced?
People don't want to open up. Like Ananya said, that there is a huge stigma around it, and people are not willing to accept that mental illness can be treated. It is like any other physical illness. If you go to the right person, a psychologist or a psychiatrist, there are ways to get over it. But you have to take the first step towards healing, because it can be healed.
But is the fear more from the aspect of people that they are close to and how friends and family will react, or about how the society will see it? What impact will it have at, in their workplace? What's the biggest fear that they actually?
I think the first fear that comes is from within, that why can I not handle this issue myself? Am I weak? That's the first question that a client or a patient goes through, that how can I be so weak?
Right.
Let me handle it. It's okay, I'll snap out of it. And then the next level is the family and the friends who say, oh, come on, just snap out of it. Let's go for a film, or let's go out and have some fun, and it'll all be fine. And then, of course, the society and workplace and all those layers come to attack the person.
Right. So, Dr. Shetty, often you will hear people say कि अरे डॉक्टर के पास जाना है इस चीज़ के लिए, ऐसे कैसे हो सकता है, मैं पागल थोड़ी हूँ. That breaking that barrier, how does one go about it? Is it because we don't talk enough, we don't have enough awareness campaigns, or we're not teaching it right? We should probably start teaching children this in our schools.
Three things. One is that when you say your behavior has changed, you believe that somebody, it's attributed to somebody doing some witchcraft against you. That's a big thing in the country. You will be surprised that even senior civil servants talk like this. Right. Number two is that Number two is that when you say mental illness, suddenly you get that image or that video in your mind of somebody behaving very insanely in the road. But when people come to my clinic, they see nobody is behaving insanely. They're just like you and me. Correct. And that's something which is very important to understand. The best way to break is it's breaking, because you cannot avoid it. 1 out of 8 to 1 out of 10 Indians are mentally ill. 150 million people need immediate help. I'm not talking about it. Chaturvedi sir is there, he's from NIMHANS, it's a NIMHANS study. So there is no option but to tell people that somebody is ill in my house, and there could be somebody ill in your house also. Deepika Padukone has done something phenomenal work by coming out and sharing very openly. The best way to break the stigma is for educated, upper class, highly literate people in positions to come and talk about it openly. And I'll tell you a strange story. When people would give me a call and said 20 years back ki hame aana hai, but see to it that these people are not there in the clinic.
Right.
And then in the last 10 years, they would say, I'll come, but I'll come after these people, if they're from the same community. Yeah. Now they come and sit outside and chat.
Is it?
Also, yeah, yes. Also, what is very important in the marriage, if I was introduced to others, people would come and say, nahi, psychiatrist se dur bhag rahe the, 20 saal pehle. 20 saal pehle, 20 years back, they would say, my uncle is taking some medicines. What do you think about it? It was not uncle, it was they themselves. Now if you go to any program, you are flocked and people openly talk about medications, symptoms, treatment, adverse effects, and the need to take care. I mean, it's changing very fast, though the speed is something we need to accelerate, but we do not have enough professionals, and this movement cannot be a movement which is based on senior professionals. It has to be a people's movement that can change the stigma. If you remember, the President of India said that we're in the middle of a looming mental health epidemic, and I think that is very important. 4 out of 10 women who commit suicide in the world are Indians. Lancet study. So I think that globalization, media will bring people closer, and it will make them talk. It will make us talk. But much more than that, we need a mental health revolution in the country.
You know, you mentioned Deepika Padukone, perhaps one of the first big stars who started talking about it. And she had a conversation with you. You did a conversation with her as
actually
well.
Priyanka Chopra yesterday.
Yes,
and,
yes.
Priyanka Chopra.
Does that help when you have stars like Deepika and Priyanka come out and speak about it? Do you see that people are reacting, maybe opening up more, even to you in their comments? Because we end up usually getting a lot more calls during when we have these conversations. So does it help when big faces actually become real and talk about their own stories?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, if any famous person talks about it, it
Right.
kind of tells a kid watching that video on his phone that, listen, it's okay. Even like the most successful, most hardworking, most sorted out people have these kind of issues. So it makes it okay for like a teenager to, you know, come to terms with his feelings or her feelings. And I think more celebrities actually need to come out and speak about this stuff.
Yeah.
I just feel that they've not got the opportunity to do it yet because mental health isn't spoken about enough online and in media portals.
Right.
So kudos to Mirror now. Like we're talking about mental
Well,
health.
that's we're trying to have this conversation and bring about some change, and hopefully we'll continue to do it for a long time. Let me go across to two of our other panelists who haven't spoken yet. Dr. Santosh Chaturvedi. While the bigger change will happen, Dr. Chaturvedi, from what we as people do and how we change our mindset and help people around us, there is a bit of work that the government can also do. There was a survey, a report that was carried out in 2015, 2016, and since then, I'm not too sure what has happened. At the end of the day, a lot more awareness campaigns, a lot more, availability of mental care centers, healthcare centers have to be provided even by the government. Do you think at that point we are failing?
Let me start with the issue which you started discussing about stigma. And as Dr. Shetty was mentioning, I think the scene is changing. I am a little more optimistic, and I see that there has been actually a rapid transformation. If you look at the hospitals, I mean, like for example, even NIMHANS, we get approximately 500 cases every day. I know there are hospitals where they get as many as more than 1,500 patients every day. And there are private practitioners who are, working 12 hours a day looking at patients. So there is, and these are people who are from all education status, all socioeconomic status, and they are from different backgrounds, urban, rural. So actually the pace at which the stigma is dissipating, the number of professionals, we have not been able to keep up with that. So coming to the issue about what the government is doing, and I think the last, I would say, 5 or 6 years have really been very good for mental health. We had the mental health policy being made. We had the new Mental Health Care Act, which has been introduced in 2017, and now we have the National Mental Health Survey, which is the first survey of its type, which gave us a rough idea about what is happening in the country. So now that we know, I mean, this was done in 12 states, and we are expanding it to cover other states as well. We have got an idea about what is the magnitude of mental health problems. So after that, I think the issues which you raised.
So, Dr. Chaturvedi, can you give us some insights?
The government, as far as I know, they have made tasks.
Right. Can you give us some insights on the extent of mental health problems, and if there are certain age groups or certain segments, parts of our country where it's a bigger concern?
Well, the National Mental Health Survey has found that approximately 13% of the population, including all ages,
right,
have a mental health problem which requires intervention. Okay, and of these, the children and the elderly are vulnerable, and of course, women have their own different types of psychiatric problems for which they are, more vulnerable. And it is the people who are vulnerable are the ones who probably are not brought for help. So that makes the problem even more difficult. And now that we know these are there, we know that there is a task force on mental health, which the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has made, and there are now going to be a different category of services, right from the grassroots level, primary care level, having wellness centers, and also including various other specialities into that. the integration of mental health with common mental health disorders, with general practice, general physicians, is another thing which the government has been thinking about. And I know because NIMHANS is also involved in many of these programs, rapid strides are being done. It will take some time before all these things get implemented and we actually see impact in the general public.
Okay.
But it is a very complex problem. We are not the only ones who have had difficulties. It's been there globally also.
Of course, absolutely. This is something which is across the world. And it actually doesn't matter who you are, from which race, religion, caste, age group, or what economic class. This is one thing that can transcend all of these barriers and strike you at any given point of time. Agastya Kapoor, the conversation is about how do we break this stigma? What can be the different methods by which we can get people to talk more about it?
Yeah, right. Thank you, Tanvi. Thank you for having these conversations. So I think in my perspective, though we are talking about the stigma, it is a lot has to do with our conditioning, जो past conditioning हुई है और वो चलती आ रही है. But thanks to the media and the different content and different resources what we are having now, बहुत सारा चीजें people are really opening up. And you know, one very interesting thing I want to add in the conversation is that there are also many alternative modalities which are available. So not necessarily कि psychologist ही हो or psychiatrist ही हो. So there are a lot of different stuff which is available in India and around the world where people can, you know, heal themselves and do self-healing. And a thing like, okay, mental health education, okay, is not available, but now because of the media, the content and the different people what are sharing the messages, people are, yes, coming up and talking a lot about it, and they are realizing the importance of mental health.
Okay.
So I really feel the scenario is changing and there are a lot of resources and opportunities coming up.
Is self-healing, you know, the right way to go, at least at the point where you don't know what it is that's ailing you?
I think we need to screen people who have changes in behavior. We need to screen people who are sad and decide whether they have stress of the mind or fracture of the mind. If it's stress, holiday, going out,
that helps
having a party, but we need to suspect fracture because it's an epidemic of mental illness. So just like when you have fever, you will not take tulsi or haldi, you will first check if it's dengue and malaria because there's an epidemic of malaria or dengue. So I think what is very important, if somebody is down, he or she should be screened like you screen people who have chest pain. When you have chest pain, you don't talk about gas or prawns, you go and do an ECG. And similarly, if somebody has pain in the mind, if somebody has behavioral change, we need to screen them for mental illness first. And other adjuvant treatments are something which can be done by others. But also one more point. We need to have a mental health revolution as big as Swachh Bharat, as big as Ujjwala, as big as Mudra loan. It cannot be less than that because India is slowly becoming the suicide capital of the country. And we still don't have figures by the NCRB after 2015.
So we have no figures from NCRB for anything from since 2015. Whether it's you know, suicide.
Earlier it was Earlier it was 2 years gap. Now it is still 4 years, and we don't have figures for farmer suicides also for a very long time.
That's an unfortunate part. Yes, in fact, I have a viewer on the phone line calling us from Bengaluru. Chooses to remain anonymous at this point, but wants to share her experience. Hi, go ahead, please.
Hi, so I have been a suicide survivor and I've been into depression many times. So recently, about 5 months back, when I was very suicidal, I had this kind of very strange experience wherein everybody is talking about come out and speak it out and, you know, talk about it. It's not so simple because I was alone that day and I was very suicidal. I had issues. I was in chronic depression. I went to 3 major hospitals in Bangalore and were in all private hospitals which were in my reach. And I was denied admission saying that private hospitals, they don't admit suicidal cases. And I need to either approach NIMHANS, which was logistically very far from my house. So if someone is very suicidal, is on the verge of either jumping from the balcony or crashing her car, just to take a suicide attempt, would not go like to NIMHANS and kind of, go through the process of, complete of official process and all that. Finally, when I managed to reach to one of the hospital, which was really very far, which could admit a suicidal patient, I was again denied on the basis because I went alone. And unfortunately, I was alone that time in Bangalore, and that night was so horrific. I still remember I was on the verge of literally jumping from my balcony. That kind of day it was, and I was denied admission, saying that in India, the law is that they cannot admit any suicidal patient if the patient is alone and if there is no attendant with the patient. So I think there is a need to tweak the law as well. If the patient is willing to go out, seek help, cry for help or whatever, because literally that day I cried for help, but I was denied any help. So it was left on, and interestingly, when I asked a doctor, so you're leaving me to die? And then he said, yes, I mean, you're on your own today. Unfortunately, I cannot help you. And then one of the doctors answered that if you want a better treatment, you can go to US, because there the policies are different. So these are the different, I'm not against any psychiatrist. I have been in touch of many psychiatrists, and I have great admiration for the psychiatrists. But this is the real ground situation. This is the real facts.
Well, that's and that's quite unfortunate. Can I ask you how long ago was this?
This recent suicidal, the suicidal thoughts, it was in February, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So, well, I'm glad that you didn't go all the way. I'm glad that you're here and you're still, fighting, and you're willing to talk about it and raise these issues that must be brought to the fore. I hope someday you also are ready to share your identity with us, because the idea, again, for this conversation is to let's break that stigma and let's talk about it openly. But thank you for calling, and I appreciate that. Dr. Shetty, do you want to add to what she's saying?
It's true of Bombay. The stigma among non-psychiatric medical consultants also
they don't
big.
take such cases?
In Bombay, in your newspaper, there were 2 incidents just 6 months ago when 2 major hospitals in Bombay refused patients, and I had to admit them.
And that's by law, they can do that?
No, they can't. See, it's
because
like this.
She's been given to understand that it's the law that they can't take such cases.
That's attendant. She said they can't admit. I don't think so. I think what's happening is most of the corporate hospitals don't admit because they feel if you admit a mentally ill patient, other patients will run away. That's stigma. Number 2 is there's very little income when you admit a mentally ill patient. There's no investigations, etc. Third is they don't have the paraphernalia to really counsel or treat, though they have enough psychiatrists and psychologists. This fear has to go. Mental Health Act, which has come now, these hospitals need to apply for licenses. And my hospital, LH Hirandani Hospital, we admit. And it's only the mindset of the medical fraternity which is also increasing a lot of stigma.
Yeah, but imagine she's there pleading for help and she's asking that doctor, won't you help me and save me?
Your newspaper has also published the same article where most of the hospitals which treat affluent patients refuse mentally ill and the municipal hospitals accept. So I think we are going to approach the Maharashtra State Legal Authority, MSLA, to educate the corporate hospitals about the Mental Health Act and see that they are addressed. This is a pure violation of the rights of the mentally ill, and this is unfortunately very sad, happens in most of the metros in the country.
Why does this mindset exist in...
It's long. I'll tell you what. If I have a violent patient, the hernia patient will run away, the cardiac patient will run away, and I don't want any problems in my hospital. But they don't understand that 1 out of 8 people are mentally ill. So in a family, if somebody has a heart attack, he might have somebody who's depressed who would need the same hospital. So the smart thing for all these hospitals to do is to accept mental illness, because in their family, 1 out of 8, if they're mentally ill, there could be a mental illness, there could be heart, there could be dengue, there could be malaria. Patients, families will feel comfortable if you admit mental ill, because they'll say, if there's any mental illness in my family, I can go to the same hospital which does an angiography, which does angioplasty, which operates appendix. So that is the smart thing hospitals don't understand.
Correct. All right. I have one more viewer on the phone line, also from Bengaluru, and wants to remain anonymous, but has a story to share with us. Go ahead, please. Good evening.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My husband is suffering from depression and OCPD from last 4-5 years. And this is affecting my married life. And Like, I'm not happy at all. And he is under treatment right now. But, people are not aware about the mental.
Yes, absolutely. I can imagine how that will also, affect friends and family members.
And caregivers.
And caregivers, correct. It's a very difficult
It's a
task for
big
caregivers
yes,
as
because
well.
they don't get any attention when there is a person who's taking care of the mentally ill. The caregiver never gets any attention. At the same time, the person is going through a lot of stress himself or herself. So counseling needs to be done for the caregivers as well. It's a community which has been completely not looked at. And one more thing which I wanted to add over here is, besides depression, which we all are speaking about, there is OCD and there is eating disorders which are on a rise in India given the social media exposure. That also needs to be addressed. So OCD is something that is a mental disorder.
So before we move on to the social media aspect as well, that I wanted to talk about, when patients do seek professional help, do the experts also realize that the caregivers and the support system perhaps also needs counseling and that they need to come in? Does that happen often? Because she's obviously struggling and she may also need some kind of a counseling in there.
Unfortunately not. It is, like I said, it is a community which has not been looked at, but we as caregiver, as psychiatrists and psychologists need to be caregivers to the caregivers.
Right.
So that is one community that one needs to look at very positively and strongly and support them in what they're doing.
The number of psychologists and psychiatrists are so few.
So few.
Impossible to reach out to every family and every. But what she can do is that she should break the stigma, share it with the family, extended family and friends,
create her own support system.
Seek support from that group. And I think what is very important, most of the patients who have depression, OCD would need extensive treatment, but most of them hide and they don't share even with their own brother-in-laws and sister-in-laws, because they say, यदि मेरे बहन के husband को पता चला तो वो Times of India सबको बता देगा.
Yeah, and like she's saying that, it's obviously affecting them, their relationship and their marriage, and that perhaps also adds to the stigma, before people decide to open
breaking the stigma would mean she should open up with her close-knit family. And I agree with Aditi that caregivers are ignored.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the fact that you've called, even though it's anonymous, I think that's a great step forward in any case.
Correct.
So I would like to say kudos, because
yes, absolutely.
Obviously this is going on, you read about it and you've come in. So it's a first step, right? So I think that should be applauded.
Yes.
And yeah, I think that's a great step in itself. Even though you've called anonymously, I hope that you get the help required and your husband gets the help required.
Yes, and like Aditi was pointing out, it's also essential for you as the caregiver and the support system for a person who is going through depression to also seek help. You will also find it then easier to figure how to deal with that stress. Let's go back to the other point that you were raising about social media, and it's a double-edged sword, right? On one hand, it's putting a lot of pressure, especially on youngsters who are so active across 10 platforms. You need to keep up, you need to get people, your network, your followers are all completely engrossed in what you're doing and following you. On the other hand, it could also benefit because it's easier sometimes to open up, to have conversations. People are on the same page, on the same frequency. They can sit and casually talk about it.
Yeah, 100%. So that's the actual big change we're seeing over the last 2 years. A lot of people are coming out on social media, and it's just like venting, to someone. Like, you're putting it out to your followers. People give their opinions. People show support usually.
Yeah.
Like, you'll rarely find someone putting out their mental health status on social media, and then you won't really see negativity around that. You'll just see support. And as for social media influencers, I feel like even the influencer community is really trying to put out a lot of positivity out there. They're trying to tell people that it's okay to talk about problems like this.
Now, how do they deal with it? Because it's obviously, it's a high pressure, extremely demanding. You have your set of followers, and you're an influencer. What if tomorrow you don't get the kind of traction or reaction that you're expecting? There's always that playing on your mind. Does that begin to affect also?
I think it probably, on a personal level, it affected me when I'd started out, and then eventually you kind of just get used to it. You understand that there's ups and downs in all kinds of industries, so you have to just stay consistent with your work. But I personally follow this. I have this practice of switching off from screens for 2 hours every day before I sleep. So it's like a conscious social media detox, and I'm the social media guy.
That is the message that you must give to your followers, because people get so engrossed in social media that they lose the relationship with time, space, and everything else
100%.
around.
I have,
And not
have,
just for celebrities or influencers, and I think that's everybody right now, you know, hooked onto social media, 5 different platforms.
yeah, I feel like there's a lot of human experiences that the younger generation is missing out on.
100%.
So they just need to become conscious of that, switch off, go spend time with your family.
All generations. I have a story.
Yes.
I have a WhatsApp group of singles.
Yes.
And I still remember this one person wanted to jump down from a building, and she put that in the WhatsApp because they're very close. They're all helping each other.
Right.
4 or 5 members rushed to the person's house, and that support, they saved her life. They could escort her to a psychologist, and that helped. So human support, as he says, is extremely important in mental health. And I think these groups, when they come together, when they share their deep stuff, they really help each other.
And on behalf of the social media world, in a couple of years, you're going to be seeing a different environment when
How
it
is
comes to
that?
talking. People are getting very open about their mental health battles.
Right. But people are also getting very open about what they think, and that could begin to affect others.
Like
right?
you're saying, if they put out some negative
Yeah.
okay, I agree. There's always going to be, you know, negatives and naysayers. But if you see the overall quantity on social media, there's always more positivity, more support, more woke opinions, as we call it. more
Ananya,
logical
what's your
opinions.
view on this?
I think it can't be taken that seriously. I think you should focus on the positivity. For example, what he's doing is absolutely amazing. I love the content he's creating. It's positive. We as adults can choose the content that we want to, even though there's so much, we can still choose what we want to focus on and what we don't want to focus on. So I think given that it's such a huge platform with all of these various, you know, social media platforms, I think we should be very mindful of what we consume because that can affect us. So I think a lot of it is in our hands and also how we want to use it. So I honestly try my level best to be as real as possible, and hence something like this coming, you know, saying, yes, I have suffered from a couple of different mental health issues, but you know what, I went for therapy for more than 10 years and I've gotten better and I'm the happiest and healthiest I've been.
Who did you first approach when you realized that you needed to talk about this?
So when everything started initially, it was all to myself. There were many different issues going on. And I remember I was texting my best friend and I was like, and I know the whole stigma thing and how it feels, because when I texted her, I said, I felt like my life was going to end if I told her. And I was like, you're probably not going to want to ever talk to me again. So I was like 12. And when I told her, she replied saying, so what is going to make your life end and what is going to make me run away from you? And so the way she reacted to me was absolutely so normal that gave me a lot of strength. Then of course after that I spoke to my parents, super supportive as well. And it's just been an amazing journey of self-realization, self-awareness. And I've really never felt happier and stronger. And so anyone watching, I think, you know, all of us, I think, sitting here can say that, like you said, life has ups and downs, but you just have to keep working on yourself, and there's always light after a dark tunnel.
You know, one thing that everybody is telling us here, and I just want to highlight this to, you know, everybody who's watching this conversation, is that look at the kind of response that they're talking about. There is no judgment. You know, there is no negative response. You will be pleasantly surprised to see how supportive people are if you open up to them about it, how understanding they are. And they may or may not be able to guide you, but you know, at least they will be there with you as you figure out what has to be done. I believe Agastya wanted to make a point. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Tanvi. So,
yeah,
I have a very interesting perspective. We were talking
Yes,
about
Dr.
social
Chaturvedi,
media.
I'm coming to you next.
Sorry.
Yeah, Agastya, go ahead, please.
yeah, okay.
Yes. So we were talking about social media. So it's, you know, like जो poison आता है वो अपने साथ अपने antidote खुद लेके आता है. So social media has also given so many opportunities for people to connect with different types of, you know, people who are mental professionals and into healing and all of those other stuff. They can reach out to so many people. So which is a very, very good thing that different people are out there for help. So I think there is a very, very interesting point, which I am personally noticing as a mental health volunteer and professional. People are reaching out to me through social media, and most of the stuff happens online, so, which is very comfortable for them.
Okay, all right. That's interesting, and that's obviously encouraging. Before I go across to our next caller, Dr. Chaturvedi wanted to come in and make a point as well. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to point out that let's be realistic.
Okay.
The actual social structure is crumbling.
Yeah.
Families have become smaller. People are lonely. So the human social support is becoming less. And I have been noticing that the social media is the new social support. And if it should be used appropriately so that people can get help on that, either online or through groups or through various support things which can be there in that. So we should not actually discard the online social media as something which is it's very hazardous or criminal. It needs to be used appropriately, and I very strongly feel that the social media is the new social support, and it's going to become stronger and stronger.
So let me be the devil's advocate here by simply putting this question out for our panelists. Something that's actually also causing a part of this problem. It's essentially it's reducing your human interaction, and you're constantly into that phone, unaware of what's happening around you, not interacting with your friends or family, which may be sitting right there. How can that also be the solution to this problem?
Globalization has caused disconnection. A security guard or a CEO works for 12 to 14 hours. He travels 2-3 hours. There's no time for him to meet his loved ones also. So this social media does fill the gap. I strongly advocate that mental health professionals, 6,000 in the country, can't reach out to 1.3 billion by having small workshops. They need to escalate their messages through social media. India is prepared to talk. Go to any workshop and ask them, how many of you have attempted suicide? They put their hands up. India is in an era of disclosure. We are not asking the questions. So I think social media is a boon in a very big way. Though in the train, I would like people to talk to each other. In the bus, I would like people to talk to each other. In the auto or in the aeroplane, I would like people to talk to each other. But when relatives are not available and they're not accessible, I think acquaintances also help you to release your tension, and that I think is very important.
I've also got like one of the biggest life hacks from the world of social media. So 5 years back, you were an average of the 5 people you hung out with the most. In today's day and age, you're an average of the 20 content creators that you follow and the 20 accounts you follow. So if you feel that someone's account, someone's content is adding any kind of negativity to your life, unfollow them or mute that account.
Correct. That's what I'm saying.
I
that
think this message
it's
needs
your
to
choice.
go to
It's
young
our choice.
children.
Yeah.
Right.
Because what I see is young children do not have the rational thinking that, okay, this is not good for them, this is not, but they are completely engrossed with social media. And that step needs to be taken by us, the social influencers, the media, to make sure that the children are not following negativity.
Yeah, because
they
like
get
she's saying,
carried
it's your
away very
choice.
easily.
Well, we have a choice here. We've been given this amazing tool called social media. Let's use it in the best way possible.
Right.
But that doesn't mean we can't put our phone down for an hour and go for a face-to-face lunch with someone you love or with a friend.
Right.
So both can exist. It's about finding the balance. The choice also boils down to following content, like you said, which is positive.
Right.
The choice also goes down to I'm going to put out content out there that's positive, that's not real but real. So it's all about choice, and if we make this choice correctly, with being mindful of how we can actually impact people and create a positive change, I think it can create wonders.
Right. Yeah.
And those who are very vulnerable, those who are depressed and anxious, they make a lot of mistakes when they are in the social. They are not able to differentiate the right from the wrong, and you need to protect people who are very depressed, very vulnerable mentally, and you need to help them with the social media, because they are not able to gauge what is right and what is wrong. They are not able to gauge who's their friend and who's somebody
Yes,
who's
I feel that
after
there
them.
may be some who will find it a lot
small
more
number.
difficult to shut it down and to shut out the negativity and not get carried away with what people are saying, how many are following you, what they are talking about, and if you're able to...
We need to support such guys.
Yes, and for them it will be difficult to shut it down, but what she's saying is actually also a
I
very good
agree with that
takeaway, that
completely.
try and block it out. There is so much content on social media, so much good, positive, inspiring content that perhaps we should be focusing more on.
Mindful, she said, I agree.
And the parents need to
And
keep
the
an
parents,
eye
yeah.
on the young ones, because they are a huge
Absolutely.
vulnerable community that we have. And they are, like I said, they're completely engrossed with social media.
Correct.
And we don't know who they're following as parents, then we are headed for doom.
Right.
We need to be careful with what they're watching.
And to know,
protect them mentally.
and as she said, to know what is mindful
Right.
is also an art and skill which you slowly develop after some time, and that's beautifully said.
Thank
Yes,
you, sir.
yes. Meena Patole on the phone line calling us from Mumbai. Good evening, Meena. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you so much. I am really feeling empowered,
that you have taken out this particular subject on this World Mental Health Day. I myself is a sufferer. You know, since 2 years, I'm suffering from depression. Ever since I reached my menopause, I'm 58 years old, working in hospital as a nursing lecturer. And suddenly one night, I don't know, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, and whatever my interests were withdrawing. I'm a very social person, but suddenly I felt that there's nobody around me, and whom to talk to, how to talk to, and I lost my appetite. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't talk to anyone, and I don't know, I couldn't explain what is happening in my body. Something was going wrong very badly. And because I'm belonging to medical field, I thought that all my neurotransmitters are all gone away from my brain. I do not know what to do, whom to approach, whom to meet, whom to talk to. It was 2 years back. And that time only Deepika Padukone had opened up. So I said, I need to talk to someone. I need some support system. And then I'm living alone. Actually, right now, I live alone. I have my brother and my sister-in-law staying nearer to my place. So when I went to their place, I told them that these are my feelings and I cannot go to office. I cannot go to office tomorrow. I cannot get up in the morning. I don't feel like bathing. I don't feel like eating. I'm feeling restless from inside. But they're not understanding. They're saying, why are you acting like mad? You are a confident woman. You are earning. You have a house. You have a job. You have so many things. And still you are behaving like this. This is very weird behavior. And please go back to your house and manage. Go to work. When you go to work, you will feel better. Then I went to work. I found the support in my friend. I opened up to my friend. I said, I'm feeling like this. I don't know what to do, how to take lecture, how to stand in front of students. Who will understand me? Then she took me to the psychiatrist, Dr. Nilesh Shah, who is there in Sion Hospital. Then I told him everything in detail. He listened to me so nicely. His listening only made me little bit better, you know, that someone is there to listen to me and understand me. He understood my problem. He said, sister, don't worry, don't worry. अपने को हेडेक होता है ना, अपने को पेट में दर्द होता है तो हम लोग गोली लेते हैं ना, तो now अपने को कुछ तो हो रहा है दिमाग में. You are at the menopause, so serotonin level must have gone down, dopamine, endorphin, all these levels are there. They little bit get disturbed, so don't worry. अपने पास है ना दवाई. हम लोग दवाई start करेंगे, you will feel better. Don't worry. Only these words made me feel so better. From that day onwards, regularly I'm following up, taking the medication till now. But I can do everything with the medication.
Well, thank you for calling. Yes.
I want to quickly just... Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, I think... Yes, go ahead, please.
So I guess y'all will, ma'am, I guess y'all will know best. But from what she's saying, and it's so amazing that she let her name and she, you know, said her story.
Absolutely.
And she's a nursing supervisor in a hospital.
It's amazing. And the first thing is, I think there's always a ray of hope after hearing the story, because if your so-called friends didn't listen, there was someone else who did listen.
There's always somebody who will listen.
Your family didn't listen, so your friend did listen. So there's always someone out there. That's number one. Number two is, this sort of brings me, which I personally believe, that I guess everyone has a genetic disposition, and then there are triggers, right? So it's like, in psychology, I guess one of the main debates is nurture versus nature.
Nature.
So if someone, I guess menopause then happens to be something that's going on in the brain, like she said, maybe serotonin levels drop. This is what she said. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. So I guess that was nature in a sense, and then I guess she must have had triggers which would have worsened that situation. Do you think that's...
There are three things now. When we were doing our psychiatry, Dr. Shah and me, we worked together. Those days we were talking about genetics.
Right.
But brain has not changed its size, shape, color and chemistry. The increased number of depression is because of the change in environment. The brain is absolutely stressed, and that I think is important. So anybody can get depressed, though those who are genetically predisposed are more prone to depression.
Right.
But what she said is something important. What she said is the most devastating sentences a depressed person can hear: nothing is wrong with you, you have everything, look at me, I do yoga at 4 o'clock. But people don't understand that when the mind is fractured, what's happening inside is so bad, it's invisible. So depression is invisible. Believe what people say and screen them for depression and treat them as fast as you can. Schizophrenia is visible.
Correct.
But depression is so invisible, and it's important for people to believe what they say. Two things: rare symptoms of depression, excessive exhaustion, Aditi,
Yes,
excessive
absolutely.
tiredness, and pain all over, which are non-specific, not explainable by any physical illness, should go to a psychiatrist and a psychologist and treat them. Lastly, very severe depression may not do well with listening, counseling, and medications, and few might need to take life-saving electroconvulsive therapy, which is given for suicidal depressed all over the world. And that, I think, is very, very important.
And contrary to what people believe, because we have this whole, oh my God, electroconvulsive therapies, like, you know, people go into this
Hindi
kind
movie.
of
There's a Hindi
exactly.
movie hangover
But
that we
now,
have.
now
Correct.
science has completely changed it, and it is not given the way it's shown. It is a treatment which is proven to be extremely effective in
life-saving in suicidal
Absolutely.
depressed patients.
So I just want to
This
also quickly.
invisible thing that you were mentioning, I was just sitting one day and thinking, the emotion of love that we feel within is invisible. But all of us experience it, right? So it's
Right.
okay, because we all know how we feel. Feeling depressed is also invisible, but maybe not everyone experiences it, and so because of X, Y, Z more reasons, it's a stigma. But love is also invisible.
Yes, and sometimes they experience it, but
The
they don't know what it
emotion.
is. They don't know what they're
Exactly,
feeling,
yeah.
and how,
So if you think
how
about
to
it like
process
that,
it.
if you think about it like that, it's
Right.
actually
Absolutely similar. But in depression, there may be no trigger. So everybody is looking for the trigger. Has husband hammered the woman? Has the woman hammered the husband? Is there loss of job, loss of business? There may be no visible trigger.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I just want to quickly go across to Dr. Chaturvedi. On the conversation we were just having, Dr. Chaturvedi, are there any more indicators? Because one of the most, frequent questions that comes across is, how do we know, how do we spot it for ourselves or for somebody around us? How do we spot that, perhaps they need help?
Well, there are two methods. One is a common question which most people misinterpret. And that is, they will ask, are you feeling sad? Or are you feeling low? Many times people might say yes, many times people might say no. It can be very deceptive. I think another question which is more sensitive to pick up a depressive disorder is asking people, do you still enjoy the things you used to enjoy? Do you still get pleasure in things which used to give you pleasure? So even if the person himself asks himself or herself, I am not enjoying the things I used to do. I'm not able to, get pleasure from things which I was able to do, and this has been going on for a few days now. That is a sign of depression. That is what we, in technical terms, we call it anhedonia. But it is something which is much more sensitive than, seeing a person who's sad or weeping. Well, if a person is sad and if he has depression, he or she is very lucky to get treatment. But many times then people will say, why are you, like we had this discussion, why are you feeling sad? You have everything in your life and, you need to be happy, snap
Yes.
out of it and all that. But not being able to enjoy things is very significant.
Yes, and I actually wanted to point this out because often people confuse the two things up. It doesn't matter if you have a good job and if you're earning well and if you have a nice house and a nice marriage or a nice supportive family.
Yeah.
That still cannot be the reason that you may not be feeling down or that you may not be having any mental health issue. It doesn't matter. It's not only for a certain segment of people. It's not only for people who may be going through something which is very visible as tough times. So as citizens, and family members and friends, we need to start understanding this. The reason may not be apparent to us, and we're also not experts in it. We need to simply start listening to what the other person has to say, try to understand, empathize, and that's how the conversation will actually begin. We can't shut it down by saying, क्या जरूरत है तुझे? तुझे क्या प्रॉब्लम है लाइफ में? सब तो है तेरे पास, सब तो अच्छा चल रहा है ना हम लोग सब, चलते चल बाहर जाएंगे, पार्टी करके आएंगे. That's not what is going to solve the problem. We can listen, we can be supportive, but we are not the experts. We need to be that support system that guides them to get professional help. We need to be that support system that listens to people around us who are reaching out to us. That's the only way we can tackle this huge problem. And believe me, like Dr. Shetty was saying, perhaps it's already an epidemic in our country. And it's only worsening because we refuse to talk about it, we refuse to acknowledge it, and we think it's something disastrous that we shouldn't even show to the rest of the world. Thank you so much for joining us on this special conversation.